So what is an economy? In the last video, which I would encourage you to watch before going on with this one, we talked around it, but we didn't really define it. So let's get on with it and actually do that. An economy is the decisions that individuals, firms, government, and society make in the process or system by which goods and services are produced, sold, and bought in a country. So it's the distribution of wealth. It's how things are distributed and the decisions that are made by government, by voters, and companies on how goods and services are distributed. Economics is the study of the economy. It's the study of how wealth, scarce resources, so gold, money, factories, jobs, anything of value is produced and distributed. Microeconomics, which is important to know the difference between that and macro, is the study of economic decisions made by individuals and businesses. So it's you and me in the place where you work, likely. Macroeconomics is studying stuff at the global level. So it is nations, it is like North America, South America, Asia, and large groups like that. Micro and macro data, such as employment, interest rates, and so on, is very interesting to look at before you, for example, launch a new product to see what's happening in the world. Okay, factors of production. This is kind of long and involved, but it is another one of these very important things we're going to talk about. Factors of production are the resources used to produce goods or services. So the first one is land, and this is the most common type of a natural resource. It's any resource that can be used in its natural form in the production process. Again, the most common is land. Farmers use it to grow crops, manufacturers use it to put factories up, retailers for store locations, mining and so forth, fishing, hunting, forestry. The next one is labor. So that's you and I when we go to work, the time and effort we use to produce goods and services. So these are people who are able to perform work, and they can be workers or managers. So it's anybody in the labor force. Capital, it's machinery, equipment, tools, physical facilities used by a firm, so it includes the building. The capital, this type of capital resource is used by human resources to produce stuff, produce the products and services, and money is often referred to as capital. So for example, physical buildings commonly used for production of both goods and services are considered capital. Entrepreneurship. This is the activity that organizes land and natural resources, labor, and capital. So an entrepreneur is a person who risks time, effort, and money to start and operate a business. So everybody who has started a business is an entrepreneur, but not everybody who manages a business is an entrepreneur. Knowledge, it's a new factor that has been introduced relatively recently. It combined talents and skills of a firm's workforce. So it's where things like patents, it's new product ideas, things like that come from. Knowledge is the area where countries are competing more and more on. So you may hear terms like knowledge management or knowledge competition, knowledge workers. All countries have the same IQ distribution. I've looked it up carefully, I've researched it. There is no country that has a corner on the market for IQ. So that means all countries can compete based on IQ, based on knowledge. So do all countries have the same number of educated people? No. Do they have the same number of geniuses? As a percentage, yes. As a total, no. Do they have the same number of patents? No. Why or why not? Okay, something to think about. There are different economic systems, and they answer the four basic questions of economics. The what goods and services and how much are going to be produced. Do we produce food or do we produce guns? How are they going to be produced? Are they going to be produced by government? Or are they going to be produced by privately owned companies? Are they going to be made by hand? Or are they going to be made by machines? For whom are they going to be produced? Are they going to be produced for private individuals, or are they going to be sold to the government? And who controls the major factors of production? So how are these factors of production allocated? Who does that? And these are land, labor, capital, entrepreneurship, whatever. Is it going to be done by private individuals, or is it going to be done by government? So these are the, again, 4 basic economic questions that are answered by different economic systems. Free market capitalism. Competition of private firms sets prices for goods and services. Government does not interfere, and this is not the most idealistic situation. So for example, the price of cars, houses, food, clothes are based on the market. If you buy a house in New York or Houston, someplace like that, prices are going to be much higher than if you buy it in Nebraska. Per Alan Greenspan, he used to be the Federal Reserve Chairman, a totally free, unregulated market does not work. Yeah, we can talk about that later. Also, Adam Smith's debunked invisible hand. You may hear that Adam Smith's invisible hand controls the market. But yeah, that's been totally brought down. Planned economies. So these range from anywhere from communist to socialist, and this is where the government owns or heavily controls the factors of production and decides how the 4 basic economic questions are answered. So in socialist, it's, they usually have more social programs, healthcare, and so forth, and higher taxes. So this is Europe. They have freer economies, but they're more regulated. And then communist, where the government controls all resources. They decide who goes to work in what factory, and they own the factory, and they own the resources to go into the factory, and so forth. Mixed economies. Almost every economy in the world is now mixed economies. So they are, turns out they're the most efficient for getting things done. Business cycles. Up or down trends in economic activity. It's just that simple. Sometimes things are good. That's when things are going up. And sometimes things are bad, and that's when the economy is going down. Based on indicators like we talked about under GDP, very similar stuff. There's many, many indicators, but very similar. An increase or decrease in business activity results in rise or fall of output, goods and services created, income, personal incomes, and business revenues, employment, jobs, and therefore the money you have to spend, and prices. So whether we have inflation, deflation, or even stagflation, where things are flat. So businesses have to track and respond to business cycles, as a lot of us saw during COVID. Things changed, the economy changed, and the businesses who got onto it survived, and sadly a lot of them did not, and did not survive. Example of business activity, cars. If people expect a weak economy, they will not buy, or they're going to delay buying a new car. Therefore, company revenues, the car company revenues will fall. The car company lays off workers and spends less on steel, plastics, etc. Other companies, steel manufacturing, plastic suppliers, and so on, they receive less revenues. Those companies lay off workers, and those workers spend less, and the cycle just keeps spiraling down. So almost all companies are affected more or less by a weak economy. So a recession is 2 or more consecutive quarters, 3-month periods of decline in a country's GDP. So here's a picture over here. Depression is a severe recession that lasts longer than a recession, with a larger decline in business activity and higher unemployment. So a depression is a recession on steroids. Monetary policies, the Federal Reserve, those are the people who deal with the banking. They deal with the money supply and all that. They take actions that affect the supply of money in the nation and the interest rates, and we'll talk a lot more about this in another video. And they try to use these to slow or halt recessions or depressions. So you'll hear terms like soft landing. So when we're starting to go into a recession, the monetary policies will be changed, and they will look for a, quote, soft landing. In other words, a very mild recession. Fiscal policy. Government influences the amount of savings and expenditures by altering the tax structure and by changing the levels of government spending. So for example, they may decrease taxes, increase highway repair, which means they spend more in taxes, and so on. A federal deficit is a lack of income caused by federal government spending more in a fiscal year than it receives. Yeah, so when you hear them talk about the federal deficit, this is what they're talking about. This is when the government spends more money than they take in from taxes, and you end up with a deficit. And the national debt is the total of all federal deficits. Okay, so that's the end of this part. There's a part 3, and I think it's going to go out to a part 5. So, next topic.